I'm Jake Tapper, and this is CNN.
Now breaking news on a story that we've been following. Robert Copeland, the Wolfboro, New Hampshire police commissioner who was overheard in a restaurant calling President Obama the N-word, has resigned. The story gained national attention when it broke last week, and soon major Republican voices as well as Democrats were calling for Copeland to step down. Among them, New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte, former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, who is running for the other New Hampshire Senate seat, and Mitt Romney, who, of course, was the nominee for president for the Republicans. He owned a vacation home in Wolfboro, still does, and he's been there since 1997. Now, meanwhile, residents in Wolfboro are dealing with fallout of their own. David Mattingly is there.
Wolfboro, New Hampshire looks like the kind of place where Norman Rockwell would go on vacation. A quaint New England town, a tidy white picket fence picture of Americana on the banks of Lake Winnipesaukee. Wolfboro is 97% white. Republicans outnumber Democrats 2-1. And going to the town today, I find residents struggling with damage control.
They want to boycott the town, or they're going to come and demonstrate in the town.
I admitted.
It all springs from the revelation last week. One of the town's 3 police commissioners admitted calling the president the N-word. Robert Copeland at first refused to apologize or resign, leaving this normally quiet tourist town to take the heat. When the story hit the local paper, editor Tom Beeler says reaction was intense.
They really got worked up about it.
Immediately, local officials distanced themselves from Copeland. The Wolfboro town manager wrote that town officials were appalled at the language used by Commissioner Copeland, calling it reprehensible. The police chief reported being inundated with phone calls that were vile, obscene, and threatening, saying Copeland's words do not represent the views or opinions of the department. Even Mitt Romney, who frequents Wolfboro at his vacation lake home, condemned the commissioner's vile epithets, saying he should apologize and resign. Commissioner Copeland did not respond to our phone calls for comment, but he was apparently listening to the criticism being leveled at his town. In a one-line email to the chairman of the police commission, he simply wrote, "I resign." Commission Chairman Joe Balboni describes a long, emotional meeting with Copeland.
He says, "Joe, you're a good friend." I said, "I am your friend," but I said, "You screwed up. You got to face it. You got to admit it. You made a bad mistake, and we got to move on." End of story.
But it may not be the end of the story for everyone. So this is where it happened. The whistleblower who exposed Copeland after overhearing his words in a restaurant has been targeted by menacing calls. Threats?
Yeah, I have been getting threats.
What are they saying to you?
Some white supremacist things like, "Why don't you stick to your own kind?" Threatening to beat me up.
That is just one person's concerns. Most people here are talking about what's going to happen to the economy when so much of their money here is made during the summer months in tourism. People are wondering if Copeland's resignation will be enough. If you notice in that short message that he sent to his fellow commissioners, he did not apologize. Brianna?
No, he did not say that he was sorry. David Mattingly in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, thank you very much. And with me now, Charles Blow, New York Times columnist and CNN political commentator, and Ron Bonjean, former top congressional aide and Republican strategist. Charles, first to you. What did you think when you saw, I mean, this is a small town, but there was a lot of response from Democrats and vociferous response from Republicans. What did you make of that reaction?
I think it's the exact appropriate response. This is the sort of language, this is hate speech. It should not be tolerated in any part of our politics. It's not a left-right issue. We all have to work at stamping this out. And I think that if there's, sometimes we have a knee-jerk reaction to want to pin it on one side or the other. This is the sort of thing where we have to say there are plenty of ways to criticize the president. He has a record, there are policy differences, and those are fair things to do. Hate speech is not fair. It is not okay. It is vile, and we must always together come at that and say, we don't want that in our politics.
And Ron, Mitt Romney responded to this, putting a lot of pressure on this man. He said the vile epithet used and confirmed by the commissioner has no place in our community. He should apologize and resign. Obviously, Mitt Romney has a personal connection to this town. But is this, as the Republican Party tries to, I guess, widen its tent as they try to attract more minorities to the party, is this an opportunity, as they say, there is no room for racism in politics?
I thought it was a very smart move by the leaders who, called out this man and called on him to resign. I think that's right. I mean, it gives people a chance to understand that Republicans have a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to hate speech like this. I mean, Mitt Romney has a residence in the area, and he felt compelled to make sure that people in America understand that this town does not have those type of people, the majority of those type of people in it. There's just no call for that type of language at all. And I was very proud of our leaders for calling him on this gentleman to step down.
And what do you think, Charles, if this had continued on, or actually, you know what I'm really curious about? He didn't apologize. Right. I mean, what do you make of that? There's no apology. It's just clearly that he's felt the pressure to step aside, but he doesn't seem to see the error of his ways.
Right. I think that there is a real concern for locals in this place, particularly, I mean, in the lead-in piece you just did, it's 97% white, I think they said, but there's 3% minorities there. So they have the chance to run into this person. He is part of the justice apparatus in that particular town. That's a real concern, when a person not only has those sorts of biases, is not afraid to vocalize those sorts of biases, and then after the fact refuses to acknowledge that it is in fact a bias, that it is hate speech, that is not, and refuses to apologize. So you worry about that smaller group of people who live in that town, and whether or not they are getting justice if they run into a person like that.
And Ron, we've seen examples of this in the past. Sometimes people, Ted Nugent used a slur against President Obama. These things happen. They don't necessarily represent a party, but it's something that can certainly be used as a weapon. We've seen that certainly in the case of the Republican Party. How does the party confront that?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I think neither party has a monopoly on racism. And the way to confront it, like I said, is to have a zero-tolerance policy, to react swiftly and immediately to say, this is not acceptable. This is not what we as a party represent or our values. And I think by doing that today sends a loud and clear message to every American that Republicans don't stand behind those comments, that is the comments of one man who's obviously a little deranged.
What do you think, Charles?
Well, I think that is a challenge. I think Ron's right in that no one has a monopoly on it, but I think that a lot of times the high-profile cases, too many of them are on one end of the political spectrum, and that is the right. And so I think the Republican Party has an issue there in trying to figure out how do you make sure that if this doesn't represent most of us, but how do I make sure that these people don't think that they can find a home here?
Last word, Ron.
Yeah, I would take issue to that. There are a number of high-profile Democrats in the past month who have said racist and anti-Semitic remarks on the national level. They don't necessarily raise to the attention level that we may get as a Republican Party, which may mean a double standard. But I don't think either side has a monopoly on this. It's just that for some reason Republicans seem to get a little bit more attention. But if you look at, there's Governor Pat Quinn of Illinois used anti-Semitic remarks. You have a Congressman, Benny Thompson from Mississippi, called a Supreme Court justice an Uncle Tom. And you have Vice President Biden and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid saying not so nice things about President Obama when he was running for office. So I do think that both sides have problems that need to be addressed.
But I know that you will both agree on the fact that there's no room for this in politics. Ron and Charles, thank you to both of you.
Thank you.